and I know I talked about this before, I think during this class, the quality of a warrior as a weapon is based upon what he or she feeds his or her mind. So if they understand the nature of the threat, if they understand their ability, especially if they understand the nature of the threat. I remember from being a child being told, and I'm sure everyone has heard that, if you want to solve a problem, you have to know the nature of the problem before you even try to solve a problem. Your solution is going to be not good enough. So we have to understand the mind is the employee. The mind is a working force. The mind takes what we have given it and then gives us answers, solutions to whatever the problem is. It tells us how to handle whatever the problem is. That's what the mind does. And I used to say the mind is your employee. Whatever you give it to do, then it's going to do that. So we know that modern psychological studies, of course, it should be common sense anyway, that if you walk around and you tell a child every day, all day long, that the child is stupid, then the child who has this ultimate respect for you as their parent and knows that you're saying this to them out of the love for that child, then they're going to start to internalize it and believe that they are stupid. So they are telling themselves, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid. And the mind, of course, goes about the business of making them stupid. The mind follows the instruction. Okay, just like you tell your mind, I'm super intelligent, I can do this, I can do that. It's like, there's nothing that was within the reason of your abilities that you couldn't do, that you wanted to do, unless you chose not to do it, or you didn't put enough energy into it, or you put obstacles in front of yourself. There's nothing that cannot be done. There's absolute truth to that, but it has to be reasonable. Of course, you can't say, I'm going to jump to Jupiter. That's not possible in terms of physically jumping to Jupiter. But there's nothing that you can't do that you set your mind to do. That's understood. So we have to understand that our minds are our employees. They will do what we tell them to do. And we have to understand if they're not doing what we want them to do, if they're not coming up with the solutions and the ways to do this, or that they're not helping us to become the best thinking weapons possible, it's because of the employer. It's not because of the employee, because of the supervisor. It's because of who's giving the instructions to the mind. Okay? So we have to be very, very aware of that. Which of course brings up this word, and I'm jumping around a lot tonight, and I'm not apologizing, because it's like these are important points that I've heard so much over the years. I've heard so many people using this word right here, who are supposed to be serious warriors. And my mother told me when I was a child, can't die before I was born. But I'm hearing people, when you talk about sovereignty, when you talk about re-Africanization, when you talk about nation building, when you talk about educating our children properly, when you talk about homeschooling, when you talk about taking our children out of a public school system and putting them in our setting, when you talk about creating a safe, sacred space for Africans, when you talk about removing individuals who shouldn't be in the vicinity, then you start hearing that word. What we can't do, what's impossible, it's always been that way, so, why should we even try? No, first we bring up our children thinking that they are the descendants of royalty, that they can do anything, that they are all of that. And then when they get to a certain age, when we start to see that they can flex a little bit and get out and do things which may hurt them based upon their ability, then we start telling them what they can't do. We start slowing them down. We start stopping them. Okay, we tell them that you want to become a millionaire, you can become a millionaire, but you can't become a millionaire in that discipline. No such thing as can't. Okay? Which of course brings up, as I said, obstacles. What is the saying? Obstacles, things that you see when you take your eyes off of your goal. That's what obstacles are. Emphasis on the words you and your. Didn't say anything about there's something there and you see it and you can't stop it. No, obstacles are things that we create in their own imaginings, their own fears. And that's what obstacles are. So it doesn't make a difference if there's a mountain there. If you have the right mind, that mountain is not an obstacle. That mountain is a challenge. It's something that needs to be tackled. It's not something that you can't get over, can't get around, that's going to stop you from getting to the valley on the other side. In fact, if you look at it correctly, you see that mountain is the kind of challenge that's going to help you to grow. That's going to help you become mentally, physically, spiritually stronger. You know that if you climb on that mountain, whatever muscles you have in your legs, they're going to be a lot bigger and a lot stronger and a lot tougher when you get to the other side. You know that mentally, because you've had some time to probably do a lot of meditation, climbing over that mountain by yourself. So mentally, you're going to be clear. Spiritually, you're going to be more connected because you had some time to be with the ancestors. Okay? So that should be seen not as an obstacle, but as a challenge. And it's simply a matter of words. It's a matter of linguistics, if you will. It's a matter of words. It's how you frame it. You can see an obstacle or you can see a challenge. You can see something that's going to develop you into something better. It's a matter of how we frame it. That's almost always the case. Whether we're talking about a course, whether we're talking about a financial situation, whether we're talking about being uncompromising, whether we're talking about educating our children, whatever we're talking about. It's a matter of how you frame it. It's a matter of how you walk into it, how you're thinking when you walk into it. That's all it is. All it is. It's all in here. Okay? So these are things that you see. You see. Okay? When you take your eyes off of your goal. Okay? These are, and I'll say this a lot of times for young folks, these are excuses that we create. And we come up with all kinds of reasons why we can't do this and why we can't do that, and then we start doing stuff like procrastinating and all kinds of stuff that allows us not to really have to do it. These are simply excuses because we see this as a problem. We see there's something that we can't handle. Okay. Now, for warriors, one other thing real quick before I write this one down. Just a little advice, if you will. Affirmations work. Affirmations work. Why do they work? Because affirmations are a statement by this individual, if you will, to this individual. So it is you, the employer, constantly giving instructions to your employee until your employee gets it and does it right. That's what affirmations are. That's why they're so important. They work. They're short things that state a goal. And when you're saying an affirmation, you're supposed to be really precise and exact in terms of what you're asking. No, what you're commanding to come forth. What you're demanding. Okay, so affirmations are extremely important. Every morning I say, I am an African warrior scholar, a Jegna, an elder in training. I refuse to be a piece of anything less than the liberation, empowerment, and sovereignty of African people. Every day I say that. We say affirmations here when the children sneeze. Abibifahodie. In addition to whenever we see folks who we know, whenever any of y'all and I go to sleep, whenever we wake up, I say Abibifahodie. We say when we sneeze. John Henry Clark talked about how when the Romans wanted to conquer Kemet, they would say to each other, they greet each other, greeting fellow Roman, Kemet must fall. That was their daily, every day, all day long. This is what they said to each other. And they affirmed it. They created. They brought it into reality. They focused all of their energy on that. And it came into fruition. It came into existence. Because they said that. And that was the only instruction they had. It's like robots. You can't do anything but that. You can't fail unless you're dead. So Abibifahodie, which means African liberation, and I'm not finished with John Henry Clark yet. African liberation. When after reading that by John Henry Clark, we sat and talked about it. We said, well, we need an affirmation that points us to where we're going, sovereignty. And we asked one of the brothers who knows tree very, very well, what's the term for that? And he said, Abibifahodie. And we said, okay, now we need to say this enough so that it gets to work. Not just once a day or whenever we happen to remember it, I wrote it on the wall someplace and I happen to see it and maybe it goes through my... No, we need to be consistently saying it to each other. And it's wonderful how on Facebook now, you see so many people who are saying Abibifahodie. So what we came up with, we thought about how, because we deal with the children every day, all say, how can we make this, not only make it in terms of our household, but the children will get it, they'll understand, and they'll even be saying it without even realizing that they're doing it sometimes. We said, what happens on a normal, regular base? Sneezing. It's fairly regular. You know, with any given day, you're going to have, 5, 10 sneezes, or what have you. And we really had no, there was, at least to me, there was no meaning for bless you with sneezing. That nobody could give me an explanation as to why I need to say bless you. Okay. So we'll substitute bless you with Abibifahodie. So now, every time a child sneezes here, every time any I will sneeze, every time anybody we know will sneeze, we automatically say Abibifahodie. Okay. So that makes that affirmation, affirming, making something, bringing something into existence, saying that it is there, saying that it's happening. I've said before, your best motivational speakers don't tell their clients, the audience, to talk about what you want to have. Okay, they don't do that. The best ones don't do that. They tell you that you're supposed to say that you already have that. You already are that. Because you're given that instruction. And your mind, if you tell your mind, I'm a doctor, I'm a medical doctor, okay, or I'm a genius, or I'm a whatever, then it's going to find a way. Everything that you do is going to try to find a way to incorporate that into that movement, into that thought. It's going to try to find a way to make you move in that direction. I'm an intelligent person. Well, every conversation you have, everything that you read, you're going to start to think about it a little bit deeper because your mind is trying to help you to become that intelligent person. It's going to find a way. Religion. And then we can do the rules. Yes, okay, cool. And this is one topic that I almost never talk about. This is one topic that I avoid like the plague.
Why is that?
Because people often don't think when it comes to religion. They just believe. It's an emotional thing. In most cases, it does not engage thinking, and they don't distinguish between religion and spirituality, which are two completely different things, even though religion can be connected to it. But they're very, very different. The use of religions by the state have been, as Jeremy Clark said, religions are political weapons that are used against other people. Now, the problem with that is you have some people who are, if you will, old school in their thinking, who are Baptist or Catholic or Protestant or what have you, who act on the principles of that religion. They are the epitome of those religions. They are what that religion, if you will, is supposed to be about. Okay? But that's not the majority. That's absolutely not the majority. One of the points that I bring out, or try to bring out in this chapter, is that there is this debate that continues to rage in a meaningless direction between people over the African origins of religions. Whether Islam came from Africa or Christianity came from... And I say, that's irrelevant. The question for warriors is, how are these religions being used against us? You have to stop that. You're not going to change the principles of it, because those same principles that you find in Christianity, you find in Buddhism, you find in every major religion. And those principles are found in the oldest texts, the oldest collections of oracles among African people. So if we understand that, then we understand that these religions, as they're being used, are political weapons for people. And they're being used very efficiently and very effectively. That doesn't change the heart of what they're about. That doesn't change the principles of what they're supposed to be about. You should not lie. You should not steal. You should not kill. You should respect your neighbor. You should not exploit people. You should not try to deceive people. Those are basic principles which our ancestors understood quite clearly. The problem is the framework within which they have been put helps to pacify people. And we have a long, drawn-out discussion about that, but it's so interesting to me that whenever you find the destruction of African people, you find the destruction of the attempted destruction of family, and the second thing that you find is the bringing in of someone else's religion. African people never proselytized. We didn't go around and try to change anybody into our religions. And in fact, when you read the traditional books of African people, when you read books about African people traditionally, we understood that you have to really be born into your spiritual system. Okay, I can't come from this community people, this ethnic group, and then join this ethnic group and become part of that, because it was who you are. It was your essence. So we were not proselytizers. We didn't try to convince and change anybody. That happened to us. So I'm a great believer in the importance of spirituality for people, period. We need that. Warriors need that badly. And I've seen so many warriors turn away from spirituality because of religion. Most of the guys who communicated to me from behind bars, I don't hear anything about that spirituality. Don't bring me that religion. And I talk to them and I explain to them. And, okay, yeah, that was what I was talking about. But okay, I understand what you're saying. I need to be connected to spirit. Yes, absolutely. But don't hand me this other stuff, because whenever I get involved in it, somehow it starts to play with me. It pacifies me. There's a reason why in the 70s you start to see so many men leave the church. Black men leave the church. Because of the agent of pacification in our community. And some people have done a very good job of explaining it in terms of pimpology. But that doesn't change the nature of spirituality. Spirituality is extremely important. You can deny it, but it's there. And it's part of you. If you're part of the universe, then you're part of spirit, as far as I'm concerned.